So definitely, gentlemen, thank y'all for coming out. Like you said earlier, this is going to be a great little discussion. Nothing complicated, nothing all that. But definitely, we want to talk about black farming and cannabis accessibility, equity, and education. Definitely, as we talked about before, and all four of you gentlemen, that we have on here for panels are definitely doing great things out there and have done great things, and we definitely want to hear that and spread that word. Um, as the Commonwealth moves towards commercialization of marijuana, hear from these awesome Black farmers who advocate for accessibility, equity, and education in this emerging industry. We want to learn more on how social equity components can impact the accessibility to land for Black folks and why they are important for overall equity in research, education, and economics. And as I said, my name is Antoine Hines. I'm the Virginia State President chapter for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And definitely we want to hear more from as we go forward and all these different things that we're looking for in these Black farmers. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with definitely education. I'm all about education and stuff like that. So welcome. You've already heard the bios and stuff. So Jabari, definitely. I know you brung the fire on that research and education, farming, and what you've been doing from the different schooling aspect. Definitely give us some a little bit more about your role, the role, what the role of education plays in the shift towards seeing a growing number of Black cannabis hemp farmers.
All right. Well, thank you, Antoine, for the question. As far as seeing just us as Black farmers advancing in this cannabis industry, it has to start with the public, with us as researchers and us as professionals in this industry. We have to do a better job of educating our people on all aspects of this industry because this industry is evolving and moving as fast as I don't know what, and the laws in Virginia right now are allowing for lots of people to set up and basically set their foundation for what's coming in 2024. And so the first major thing is that we have to have a better presence at these state cannabis events and expos that are going on right now, because I've attended several of them and I have not seen a strong presence of Black farmers at these events. Majority of the events, 90% of the attendees at these events are white farmers. And on top of that, these white farmers already have 50 acres, 100 acres of land. And so that's another piece too, as well, is that we have to educate our people on, you're not going to make money just growing 4 plants at your house. You have to have the land, you have to have the resources, you have to remediate your soil. You have to have a market. These are the educational pieces that a lot of people know about already, but majority Black farmers do not know about. And so events like this helps us start the discussion on, okay, which direction we need to go, but also too, what do we need to focus on? What do we need to work on right away? So definitely just the research side of developing a market, growing and harvesting, and putting good quality controlled products out there.
Yeah. Thank you. So definitely that education, you said education not just on one end, but on both ends. The education with the Black farmers and then education with our politicians, education with our colleges and universities, education in the community. So definitely pushing that all around. And definitely you mentioned about Virginia and where we're going, and hopefully we're going in the right direction. And we talk about social equity, definitely with minorities medical marijuana, we talk about social equity out there. And where are we going with that? Where are we? Do we have social equity? Are we talking about it? And when we talk about the circle of Black farmers, definitely, Mr. Leroy, um, can you tell us a little bit more? Why is it important for social equity measures in the place of Black farmers?
Well, the whole thing is, the whole social equity piece. They've been looking at this. The legislation. You cannot leave out the political piece to this, okay? Because they're going to lobby, legislate, regulate, and put policies in place that are going to just shut us out of the game. So I believe that you have to be involved in the political part, the legislative effort. And we've done that for some years now. Cannabis Equity Coalition of Virginia, loosely myself and a few others on our own doing it before there were some organizations. But they've been looking at this thing. Michael Carter Jr. was part of the research that went into it for the legislators. Former Attorney General Mark Herring had a summit that they could only just, I think, legislators and a few select people could be at. They've looked at Illinois, they looked at the West Coast. Michael can speak to that. They know how to include social equity into this thing. And the legislators, the previous legislation, the people just left out of in Richmond, they already have figured out that it's going to take some time to roll this thing out and do it in a way that we wouldn't be left out again. Here we are again being left out. It's nothing new. The GOP now is taking over, in Richmond, and they're saying they're going to gut everything that was done last session by everybody. And they don't want any social equity part in it, from what I read. And from me lobbying them on my own and with the efforts of the organizations that I've been in, the GOP wasn't responsive to us and our needs. Social equity piece, so anybody doesn't understand it, is to undo the so-called effects that was the war on drugs, that was caused by the war on drugs on our communities. Our communities. They took brothers out of our community, fathers out and husbands out of our homes, locked them up for whatever, some of them as kingpins. And now here come these other people, and they're going to do the same thing that the brothers were doing and make millions and billions of dollars. They're doing it in other states. And we don't want to let the people that know how to grow and have been growing into this industry at all, the felons. And then we look at the zip codes. They can go down to the zip codes that were affected by the war on drugs. They know it. Illinois has already said it. They knew. We can get it down to the households almost if they want to do something about it. And let's see that we can get some funds in there to try to offset what the damage that was done. But in my opinion, it's too late. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the fact of what was done to our community in the 70s and the 80s, even up, well, 70s and 80s, definitely, on this war on drugs. That was a war on us. So I'm for the social equity piece. And we all paying taxes. You don't pay your taxes, guarantee you they're gonna come looking for you, take your mess. But so we paying taxes. So they talking about our money, what they're gonna do with our money. And so my piece is we need to be on the legislators, be in their face. I'm about done. They would have a bill in the House, in a committee in the Senate or the House at the state level. And they will have a meeting the next morning. The session would end of the subcommittee that evening. We try to get our heads together what we wanted to present. Michael can tell you. And then that morning they get there, they already figured out what it was. The lobbyists for the big G Leaf and all of them were already meeting with those legislators and telling them this is what we want. This is what we need to see. And we couldn't get ahead of them. I couldn't even get a call in to my legislators. I couldn't even, but somehow they could get word to them. I'm telling you, this thing is so corrupt and I'm so burnt out from it. I'm gonna be quiet. I'm done.
Well, we know white supremacy is alive and all the factors and systemic racism through this all. So definitely what you're saying is definitely the truth. When we talk about the social equity piece, the social justice piece, all those different pieces that we're working with Black farmers and that we're dealing with. So Michael, can you go ahead and piggyback off of that and the pieces that you do, what you're working on?
Yeah, and I'm gonna touch base on both what Brother Jabari and Mr. Hardy expressed. And and I'll preface this by saying, what I tell a lot of folks, even legislators, well, definitely a lot of legislators, but the Black farmer is about 2 to 4 generations behind the white farmer. And when you talk about generations, that's 20 years per generation. So you're saying that we're almost between 60 and 80 years behind other farmers in the state. And as Jabari was saying with education, there's so many different components of learning how to do what to do. And for many of us as African Americans, we have a very negative stance toward agriculture. And it's not till recently when hemp and marijuana started to become legal that more African Americans started to want to be involved in agriculture. But you got to figure that was 2007, 2018, 2019. So between 1965 and 2019, we've had nobody, or very few, when I say nobody, I mean less than 1% of African Americans in the Commonwealth are interested in the side of agriculture that's responsible for growing produce, cultivating the land. So that's a tremendous deficit that can't be made up by social media posts, by interest, nor even by social equity. And I'm not a big proponent of social equity. I can give a damn about being popular or being social. I want economic equity. And I want economic equity in terms of equity like in your home, where I want ownership. I don't want equity to make sure we're treated the same. I don't give a damn how you treat me, how you pay me, and what type of financial opportunities I have for me and my family is the most important thing to me. And I think, through the advent of social media activism, we get caught up in likes, and likes don't make a lot of change. And we have a lot of young people who have a lot of energy, but it's a lot of times it's misdirected and misguided, and only pushes it back even further, so that when you try to reach out to politicians and legislators, they assume that based upon what they've seen on social media, how you respond, that they already know you, so they're not going to give you an audience because of how emotionally discharged we can be when we meet individuals. But we have to take a note out of Sam Greenlee's book, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, and understand how to play this. We have to be strategic, that regardless of what's going on with white supremacy, that should not matter if there's any hint of African cohesion. We ain't got to talk about unity per se. We just need a little bit of cohesion, a little bit of, hey, this is our plan for the next year. This is the things we want to work on. We have some very influential individuals in this call and in the agriculture arena that has the ear of individuals in key locations throughout. I mean, I'm in Roanoke right now, and it just so happens that the Virginia State Senate are meeting on their finance appropriation for the year. So guess we'll be talking to them later on today, to push the interests of Black farmers, because for many years, unfortunately, we've had a lot of misguided activists. And as I tell a lot of individuals, Black farmers don't need activists. We need customers. However that works, but we need customers. We need folks to support us, because unfortunately, the Black community is at fault for the fall of the Black farmer. We can put it on USDA, we can put it on, racism and white supremacy, but the reality is Black people stopped supporting Black farmers. And we stopped doing that in 1965, 1968 with integration, so that, you put us out of business. Our community is supposed to support us. And now that marijuana is coming up, now folks want to get back into agriculture, but we've got a 50-year gap that we're dealing with. How do you deal with or settle with this 50-year gap? You got to learn from the best. And the best on this call and around the agriculture community. Brother Turner, Brother Hardy, even Jabari, even though he's young, he's very skilled in understanding about the markets. And he needs to be consulted with about the direction. Where do we need to go? He needs to be guiding the direction of the hemp industry. And as individuals are expressing their interest in terms of growing hemp or medical or marijuana, they need to be going through a Jabari Byrd course on the basics of cannabis, from soil health, soil remediation, soil preparation, all the way up to seed selection, on through harvest, and then through markets. A lot of Black farmers got into hemp in 2018, and the markets dried up because there was a lot of snake oil salespeople who got rich from these realities, and for those who weren't financially buttressed with some other support, you could have lost pretty much your whole farm on hemp in 2018, 2019, where it was $10,000 an acre to grow a hemp plant, or $20,000 an acre to grow a hemp plant, depending on, $10,000 an acre. You do 2 or 3 acres, that's $50,000. That's a couple salaries that really had no market, and farmers had to
Okay.
come up with creative ways or just take losses. And a farm can't afford to take that type of loss over time. Coming in January here, we have new legislation, and we got to stop playing politics and start playing our interests. I don't give a damn about parties. I don't care about if it's Democratic or Republican. Whoever is in this chair at the time needs to hear what we desire in a respectful way. When we approach these individuals, the politicians, they're people. And I can speak for myself. If somebody comes to me disrespectfully, I probably ain't gonna be hearing a lot from you. Whatever you saying, I really ain't hearing. And I ain't gonna try to follow up to be disrespectful later on in life. But if we approach them respectfully with a plan, with a group cohesion and numbers, people hear numbers, politicians hear numbers. We got to really go into those census tracts and go into the statistics, about not just, incarceration rates, but the declining amount of Black farmers and how that affects your constituency. These legislators want to be reelected again. We got to give them reason or fear of, if you don't do this for us, you may not get reelected.
Exactly.
That is, but again, that's a political illiteracy that we're suffering from. That is part of that 50-year, 80-year gap where we're playing parties like it's a sports team. I'm Democratic Party, I'm Republican Party, and not caring about various interests, is putting on the colors, putting on the mascot, and cheering for your team to win the Super Bowl every 4 years.
I agree.
So, Black farmers need support. That there are, in the right ways. There's opportunities for us, but again, we got to kind of know where we are and assess exactly where we are, not just as Black farmers. I think Black farmers are probably the most ahead of most groups in terms of the industry. We have a good understanding of the industry, but where's the Black consumer at? How do we make sure that we support Black farmers who are growing hemp and marijuana, but can't grow that solely? They got to grow vegetables too. They got to do livestock too. We need customers for those to help support the other things of growing, the hemp and the marijuana. Agriculture. Okay. Very few of us are monocrop farmers.
All right.
Meaning we don't grow this one crop. Sorry.
All right, let me get so definitely I agree with everything you said. I just changed my background because actually I talked last night with a group of with economists and two NAACP economic development chairs, and we talked about forgetting about the different Democrat and Republican and talk about actually the our actual interest disparities that we have in our community. We actually had a guest speaker from our Black Party and talking about just the Black people and their agenda, taking their agenda to the politicians and ensuring that we document it on a regular basis. And we talked about economic things when we talk about Dr. Boyce Watkins and Dr. Claude Anderson, Powernomics. How do we take that along the way? And when we talk about asset acquisition and we talk about land with the farmers and different things that we have, how do we make sure that happens? So, Mr. Turner, Renard, so definitely, how does land accessibility and financial equity connect in this space?
Well, first of all, I thank all of you for this opportunity to share with you. I want to echo everything that Michael Carter Jr. just said. I'm 69 years of age. I've been involved in agriculture since 2006 on a full-time basis. And before that, I spent most of my younger life studying agriculture and being involved in living on the land. Land access is the key to understanding all of the problems that we currently have in what we call North America now. So just looking at cannabis in an isolated lens is not really going to color this picture as it needs to be colored. We need acreage, we need access to that, and Black farmers have to stop standing in line and begging and waiting for someone else to fix our problems for us. The same dollars that we spend going to car dealers, buying upscale automobiles, flat screen TVs, Hennessy, clothing, sports memorabilia, taking cruises, needs to be invested in ourselves. Our problem here as a people is that 400 years later, we are not in any better condition financially than we were 400 years ago. Money in a capitalist society is king, and we have to have access to it, but we have more money than we're using correctly. It's how we're using our money that we need to address. So land access is key. Right now, here are the statistics for you. We own less land as a people now than we did in 1935. Only 1.42% of the farmers in this country self-identify as what is commonly called Black. That's ridiculous. Those numbers are backsliding. Do not be misled into believing the statistics that the United States Department of Agriculture is presenting about increases in Black farmers. They're not. What they're adding in there is gardeners and anybody who raised a half a dozen tomato plants or some squash in a raised bed or got a church parking lot. That's not vocational agriculture. And that's not the arena that we need to be participating in. That's not how everybody else is making their money in ag. To the cannabis industry, once again, there's going to be a lot of people rushing forward because they see this as an opportunity to get rich quick. I call many of those people culture pimps. They want to pimp the Black culture because they think they're going to make a lot of money off of marijuana, not necessarily for the right reasons. That can be another backslide for us as a people if we're not careful. We really have to watch this thing. You know, I'm pro-medicinal, I'm pro being able to grow it. That's fine. But as a business, it's going to require a lot more deep thinking than what we're putting into it right now. The smart move would be for us to form corporations and buy as much land in the state of Virginia, since we're in Virginia, as we possibly could. And I don't mean 100 acres, I mean thousands of acres. And then you can form something with the Black farmers who want to grow cannabis, but you best be able to control it on that acreage. It needs to be self-contained. We need to control it from the seed. It's like from the cradle to the grave. Every aspect of this, we need to control it ourselves. And then we need to also control the distribution and not let other people tell us where and how we can do this. That means we're going to have to pony up. You're going to have to attorney up. You're going to have to do a lot of working together to make this work. Yeah, we can change what the future of small Black family farms looks like in the state of Virginia if we do this wisely, or we're going to get kicked out of the game, much in the same way that brewers have. Look at the state of Virginia, Richmond, the capital of this whole craft beer industry. A lot of people are starting to grow hops, but more are making beer. Where is the African-American or Black farmer presence in that arena as well? The same thing will happen in the cannabis industry if we're not very careful and strategic about working together and being unapologetically Black in our finances. We can no longer sit back and say, well, I don't want to exclude someone. So, well, if we don't, we're going to continue to be being excluded by everyone else who has no problem excluding us on the way to the bank.
There you go. I got a snap. I'm going to do a snaps for that. Unapologetic.
But Michael Carter Jr., and God is my witness, he can strike me dead. I've been farming and I've been hanging on as an independent, organic, and sustainable Black farmer with my wife's help and the help of one other person largely on our farm, because we've been able to morph into doing different things as needed. Yes, I've grown hemp successfully for 2 seasons, but I didn't just grow it. I dried it, I cured it, and I now know how to infuse it, and I can make my own CBD oil under my own label as soon as the state finishes with their final inspection, which is dragging on forever. But this is what you have to do. And we can do this, but we need to create our own new model here and stop trying to work within the confines of the lines that somebody else has established for us to go by. They don't work for us well. All of those guidelines are set up to maintain a financial security by WDC, white dominant culture. You're going to be hearing that term a lot more. WDC, white dominant culture. It's all set up for the perpetuation of white dominant culture.
It's out there. White dominant culture is out there, and we definitely need to combat it. We need to keep moving forward, just like you said, and saving our farms and supporting our farms all over the place and buying up the land and support them. Because now we can buy the land, and then you also
buy land.
Farm on it.
I say buy land instead of Lexus, but you know, most of our people are going to buy the Lexus because they have no clue what to do with the land. We've lost our natural minds. We've lost our way. We're no longer producers. We're no longer producers. We have to be producers. We are not producing well for our families, and Black men have to stand up, pull up their pants, put on their big boy shoes, and start being producers. We need to produce food, clothing, and shelter en masse. We need to be able to take care of our own needs. Hemp is just one part of this, but everything goes back to land ownership, and land control. 98% of the land in this country is owned by white folks. I just come from a conference out in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I fellowship with many of my indigenous brothers and sisters who are farmers and ranchers. You know, they've got an acreage like 120,000 acre farms and ranches. And we got black folks trying to take a quarter of an acre and call it a farm. That's not the same level. And we're still only seeing a slice of the pie, and we're not seeing big ag for what it is. And make no mistake about it, cannabis is big ag.
Okay. So
big ag. We need to
so with
control the
that-
banks, buy the land, put our farmers on it, do the harvesting, do the drying, do the distribution, and own the dispensaries. Then we can talk.
So with that said, definitely, Mike has said it earlier, Jabari, looking at the research part of it and everything, and we talk about, you know, the actual minerals, we talk about the biology behind it and everything. We talk about cannabis, hemp, CBD, the whole gambit. Can you tell us, give us a little bit more insight on what you've done and what you're doing, and like you could teach stuff on a regular basis?
Yeah, man, I've been blessed to be in the position of being able to have experience from seed to shelf, essentially. So I have several publications from a master's degree revolving around seed germination for fiber, grain, and flower production of cannabis. Over the years too, as well, I've done many variety trials for fiber, for grain, and flower production, and looking at yield potentials and how different input fertilizers affect yield and whatnot. Even looking at how different varieties respond to Virginia's different soil and climate conditions. Because like right now here, I'm in the mountains where we have more of a silt loam soil versus Renard is closer to Orange County, Virginia, where it's more clay-like soil there. And then Leroy, of course, he's near the coast, so it's more sandy-like soil. So we all can't grow the same varieties of cannabis. And so that's just one example of many of that starts with the education of all of this. But going back to what Renard and Michael talked about was that we, at the end of the day, we still have to educate people on why is the cannabis industry important? How is it helping people? What are the cannabinoids? How is it helping all? Because I mean, I see it every day. I see many white people buying these products up, and that's because they do work. But there's two things when it comes to cannabis products. First, you have to have the knowledge on knowing what the benefits are going to be, but also too, you have to have the consumer compliance. And that's the piece that we can't control. I can give you all the knowledge in the world, but are you going to take the product like you're supposed to? Because, you know, this isn't like Advil, this isn't like Tylenol, where it has to build up in your system over time in order for you to get rid of conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, or alleviate pain from all sorts of conditions too as well. So that's where my focus is now, is working with specifically CBDA as a molecule to help people with pain and inflammation, essentially. And we produce capsules and topicals. So from the broad spectrum, I've been able to grow plants. I've been able to grow over 70 to 80 varieties of hemp for fiber, grain, and flower production. And on top of that, I've been associated with lots of different processors here across the state. So I know all of the different processing systems, from supercritical CO2 processing to ethanol processing to butane processing, for all sorts of products. And now I'm on the distribution side and really seeing how these big companies are selling CBD products and how they're being successful with it. But it all starts with education. And their consumers know what CBD is. They know what it's supposed to do. But we haven't done a good job with that as far as making sure that the Black community knows that this is another realm of basically holistic medicine that you can add to your repertoire. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So as we wrap up this session right here, I'm going to give everybody a chance to give your final nuggets that you want to drop to the people, around the Black farmers circle, generational wealth, land, and all these different things, social equity. So Mr. Leroy, we'll start off with you. Drop your awesome historical nugget here.
Well, Jabari mentioned the education piece, and there's a girl, a young lady, a woman, okay? I think she's younger than me, so I can say young lady. Doris Walters, aka Candy, the cannabis nurse. She knows about what this will and won't do, and she's an awesome resource for people that and some of us up here know her. I think actually there should be almost a breakout just letting her present at the conference so that people can be educated, or her and some people. That's an important piece Jabari mentioned. I agree with everybody up here. I know everybody, I'm meeting some people for the first time, but the most of us that spoke, I know and know well. We've worked together, been in the trenches. This is not a sprint. It's not a get rich quick thing. We can't depend or wait for nobody to fix us. We've got to take care of ourselves. At the same time, there's a level of accountability for, again, like I said, the legislators, those people we put into office, not into power, into office, not gonna hold their feet to the fire. It's ironic. My closing statement is what I said up in Virginia State, and a whole lot of people heard it. Me and my people, part of me, were growing hemp before anybody got here. The other part of me that's really visible to people, the African part, we picked it, packed it, did everything else. And here it is. We're on the tail end of this thing again, when we should be at the front. And actually, it's the will of the Creator that we be in the front and be at the forefront of this thing. Because it's in our DNA. It's in the stars, it's in the cards. I don't care how you put it. So ultimately, me being always belly full of fire and upset, short fused or whatever. But ultimately passion, but ultimately, that's the hope I have. And this has been encouraging. I thank you all for putting up with me and having me as part of it, and being on this panel with these awesome guys. And hats off to Chelsea and Marijuana Justice. Good work. Awesome. She's been in the trenches for a minute. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Renard, what you got for us?
Okay. So, in reflection, I have this to say. We have to return to the land to save the man, speaking specifically of the African-American man, who has to regain his natural sense of being a producer. When we do that, we'll be able to change many of the social issues we have in the community at large. We have to rebuild our families. The closer we are to the land, the more easily that is to accomplish. We need to raise our own food. We need to build our own houses. We need to make our own clothing. We need to support each other. At the end of the day, without customers, no Black farmers will survive into the future. Cannabis is just one of the doors that we can use to make these type of social changes that we need to make en masse. We return to the land, rebuild the man, rebuild the nuclear families, become producers of goods and services that we need for our communities, and support our communities. But we also need to revisit this definition of community, because mostly we're only talking about urban communities. And I'm here to tell you, you ain't never seen no Amish people standing in line for EBT, for rental assistance, for making car notes. And there's reasons for that. We're still co-opted by a corrupt system, and we're not getting this picture. So you all need to read this book I'm writing called Comfortable Slaves Never Riot, because we lead in the world of being comfortable slaves, and it's time to stop with that foolishness. Cannabis can be a door that we can utilize, but if we're wise, we'll use that money to buy thousands and thousands of acres of land. Right now, today, 5 white people own more land than all of the farmers, all the African-American farmers in this country. 5 white people own more land than all of us combined. Let that sink in, because that's really the root of the problem. Okay. Land access, land ownership, and our mindless exodus to these northern industrial cities post the Civil War has led us down this quagmire that we still are finding ourselves in. Return to the land, save the man, revive the nuclear family, do for self. Tomorrow is a good day to start. Peace.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So definitely with that land, some of you know I have a group right now for almost 420 people in a Facebook group of people who want to buy land, and we're definitely looking at buying land and definitely and partnering with the Black farmers. I think sometimes we think we got to do it on our own, like I just said. But why not partner? Why not co-op? Why not work with you all and stuff, and then do that together? So definitely, I'm partnering with you all and making sure I circulate that Black dollar as we talk and everything with our Black farmers. Michael, can you give us your last word?
Yes, sir. I wanted to be reminded into our long memory that cannabis and marijuana is an African crop. That cannabis leaf was found on the pyramids, but the goddess Shishet was a goddess of knowledge and wisdom. So it's been in our DNA, it's been our historical makeup, for eons. Ghana, where I lived at for 5 years, is the #1 consumer of cannabis in the world. They grow it with far less resources than what we have, and grow it enough to be the #1 consumer of it in the whole world. As African people, as African American people, we had the ability to create. We created a whole lottery system that they call numbers. We created a whole drug industry, the legal drug industry, that became the legal drug industry with opioids. So the ability to create when we don't have nothing but a desire and a will is in us. We've got to create another desire and a will in us to be farmers again, to get back to the land, to realize that this is our only way we're going to have liberation. Through African soil, African plants, the African mind, and the African dollar is the key to our self-medication, is the key to us healing ourselves, not to be doing whatever we desire to do without depending on anyone. We are the keys to our success. I think we just be forgetting that we left the keys in our pocket and we refuse to go in there and get and find those keys. But we are the keys that we need to make it for ourselves in Virginia and throughout the world, but definitely in Virginia. There's enough knowledge here. There's enough understanding here. There's enough history here for both the indigenous and the African influence here to be successful. As Renard stated, 1935, in the state of Virginia, we had the most Black farmers in the country in 1900, well over 25,000. 1925, we hit our peak at 52,000 Black farmers. Now we have 1,330, and that's iffy. So you're talking about a 99% decline. Something about our ancestors, whether they were sons of the enslaved or the enslaved, had a better understanding about what we need to be doing than what we do now with all of our education and all of our opportunities. When my great-great-grandparents purchased our 150 acres of land, we haven't added to it since then as a family. We've got to regain our vision about what's important. Land ownership is the key. This country is built on it. Every country is built on it. There's no landless nation. Name me one. So, we really got to, as Brother Renard and others have stated, we got to reassess our values. And we need an audit of ourselves and our character. What have we done over the last 40 years that we can say we can truly be proud of? How do we redeem, brothers like Renard, who's put in everything to try to make it work for us, and we still let him down because we didn't buy from him, because we didn't support him? That's got to be a disappointing thing, to put all your faith and trust, into your people, and your people disappoint you time and time again. That's what happened to Marcus Garvey. That's what happened to Malcolm. I mean, we continue to do it. At some point, we got to look at ourselves and say, we can help ourselves. We just got to believe in ourselves. So I'll hold it to that, we are our own self-medication.
So with that said, so definitely that's great. You see, you said I had to put up my fist on that one. Definitely, as we started with education, we're gonna end with education. One of the pieces that you had said was basically implementing into our Black farmers, and definitely Jabari, me and Jabari are actually working together, minorities medical marijuana, as well as I'm working with Blacks in Technology, and we're looking at working with the HBCUs to create that the relationship and development of programs, working with our HBCUs and our Black farmers. Because why can't we just go ahead and from the schools have the research and everything done on the farms, and then get the funding to work with them? Exactly.
Hey.
We have venture capitalists out there that would love to put money into that. So definitely, Jabari, give me your last words on that.
Yeah, in reflection of everything that we've talked about today, is we as a community control our own destiny with all of this. And like Renard and Michael said, we can use cannabis and hemp to basically rejuvenate and heal our communities. But it starts with us. It starts with us. And we have to change that mindset of we have to be consumers to other races when we can produce and consume for ourselves. We have the capability, but yes, there are some things that are still missing as far as having the land and having the resources. But the knowledge is there, and it does sound like too that there is interest in our community in making this sort of investment. And cannabis is a safer route to go, I should say, and especially given now that the whole CBD market has kind of restarted with too many people just coming into the market back in 2017, 2018, and also too with COVID now. There is an opportunity now to kind of restart with all of this. And we have all of the opportunity in the world. We just got to do it. But also too, we have to hold the consumers responsible for supporting us. We can't get anywhere. I can grow 100 acres of hemp, but if I can't sell it, then what am I doing it for? At that point. But other things too that I've learned over the years is, like, my first year we grew 6 acres and we sold majority of it. But now we're only down to doing 1 acre or 2 acres, but we're making more money off of that 1 or 2 acres just because we're taking the extra added steps. And that's the thing, is the only way to really make money in this industry right now is for you to basically have a seed to shelf operation. So that can be on a large scale where you have everybody coming in, professionals, bakers, people who can process, people who can grow, people who can distribute. You can do all of that on one land, or you can break it up into smaller segments. And so I'm more on the smaller segment side and trying to help small farmers. And today is a very special day because I get to write my first check for a Black farmer for me purchasing hemp from them. And so it's a very special day, and looking to hopefully write more in the future for more Black farmers. But we have to continue to support each other, because honestly, that's the only way that we're gonna make it in this industry. I've seen operations now that have just made me drop my mouth as soon as it's saying, and it's not even 2024 yet. So this industry is already corrupt, but the only way that we can get around is if we help ourselves.
We help ourselves, we come together, we collaborate, we circulate that black dollar, we bring on more customers, we ensure that we have research inside agriculture, the social equity, social justice, definitely making sure that we're not looking at Republicans or Democrats, we're looking at the black community, the black farmer, accessibility, equity, and education. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been awesome. Definitely we put a thank you out to Marijuana Justice and Chelsea. She is doing awesome things. And so I'm so glad I was here to moderate and work with you all today. So with that said, we're out.